Marcellus Shale gas production is seen as both a boon to our state and a potential disaster. So how do we control it? We'll talk about the West Virginia Horizontal Well Act right now on the LawWorks.
From West Virginia Public Broadcasting.
Closed captioning for the LawWorks is made possible by a grant from the Monongalia County Bar Association to support legal information and education for all West Virginians. The LawWorks is made possible by a major grant from the West Virginia Bar Foundation, the philanthropic organization for West Virginia's legal profession and legal system, promoting public knowledge of the law in West Virginia. By the generous support of Software Systems Incorporated, a West Virginia company established in 1975, providing high-end support services, programming, and consulting for county government AS400 mid-range computer systems, as well as PC-based systems. And by viewers like you.
Do you consider Marcellus Shale gas to be an opportunity or a problem? My guest is attorney and delegate Tim Manchin, House Chairman of the Joint Select Committee on Marcellus Shale. Tim, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You have been very busy with this. The technical name is the Horizontal Well Act. Where did all this come from? Why was this going on?
Well, I mean, what has happened is that you've got a new technology. We're finding gas at deep levels, and they're taking it out of shale. And about 3 or 4 years ago, this started occurring in West Virginia. And there was concern at that time. The biggest concern at that point in time was, are we using too much water? Because there was all this discussion about 2 to 5 million gallons of water. And so my Water Resources Committee took this up first at that point in time and started studying. It turns out it really, the amount of water that's being used is not that significant in the overall scheme of things, because there's just billions and billions and billions of gallons. I mean, the flow is something most people don't understand. But of course, you are ruining that water, and it needs to be disposed of properly. And you can't take water out of the headwaters back up in the mountains in August and kill the fish. I mean, you got to maintain enough water flow so that everything will live. And so ultimately, we came up with a couple ideas out of that committee in terms of what a bill should do, and got one industry company actually helped us write a bill that would identify what we put in the ground, what we took out of the ground, and how we disposed of it. Because at that point in time, there were no reporting requirements whatsoever. There were laws about how they could do it, but there were no reporting requirements. So we didn't know, you couldn't tell what anybody had done. The second thing we did, of course, was to protect headwaters and say, anytime you take water out of a stream, you have to maintain an adequate pass-by that's protective of the environment, the fish and the bugs and those sorts of things. And of course, that bill it passed the House, got killed in the Senate. The next year, it turned into a bigger bill. It was too big to get passed. The governor eventually used that bill basically as the foundation for his emergency regulations, which we then expanded upon as a joint select committee to study and to try to come up with a bill that could get passed, because we were having trouble doing it in regular session. And that's what we did all year since we got out of session this year.
It seemed like it was a huge amount of work that was involved in this new bill, and we'll talk about how it came about. But there were meetings all over the state.
We went to the northern Panhandle and Morgantown and Clarksburg. Had over 700 people turn out for these meetings to give comments on what they thought, and the committee listened to those to try to get a feel for what were the most pressing concerns of our people, and to know what we needed to address.
Well, what were the issues?
Well, wow, there's a lot of them.
Let's do the big chunky ones that kept coming back to you.
Sure. From an environmental standpoint, You have these concerns about being located too close to water supplies, being too close to trout streams, too close to running water, and what might happen to water wells. In rural West Virginia, water wells are a big thing. I mean, I've spoken at several groups, and the number one issue that comes up is, what about my water well? Maybe in the cities it's not as meaningful, but out there, they're concerned about it.
Well, even in the cities, if you're 50 years old, you probably remember having a well, if you lived outside the city, from which your water came. I remember it, and we lived about 5 miles outside of town.
Sure. You know, some of the other big issues were setbacks. In other words, how close can they drill a well to an existing structure? I mean, I think people may know or may not know, but a lot of people that are on the surface they're not the people that lease the gas. As a matter of fact, most of those people on the surface didn't know that somebody could just come in and start drilling on their property without asking them where they could put it or when it was going to be done. So to have, the existing rule was 200 feet. You can have a well that is 200 feet from a dwelling. And these things are extraordinarily noisy. And not only that, but the well pads themselves can be 400 or 500 feet. You can have a well pad on somebody's back porch. And literally, there are some that get just about that close out there.
We have done a number of shows here at the Law Works on Marcellus Shale gas. If you would like to see a video of a Marcellus well being drilled on a pad about 500, 600 feet from a residence, the easiest way to find that is to go to YouTube, if you're on the internet, and search for the Law Works Marcellus Shale, and you will find a program there with attorney David McMahon, who's the co-founder of the West Virginia Surface Owners' Rights Organization. And within that program is a video of what it's like to have a Marcellus well being drilled 500 or 600 feet from the front porch of your house. And in summer, it's loud.
Big issue. And these were things that were never contemplated before. I mean, that's the issue is that nobody knew when they initially signed these leases that this was going to be the process, and so that's why we have to intervene as a legislature. Some of the other big issues are obviously our highways, maintaining traffic, not stopping up traffic when school buses are trying to take kids home. Restoring the roads after they've run really heavy equipment on and torn them up. You know, these rigs are going into places where those roads were never designed for this kind of traffic. And,
well, at least some of the wells, water is shipped into it and taken away from it, and that's got to be heavy.
Yes.
Heavy loads on the roads too.
Sure.
So this goes on for a period of several months.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, that may be the preferred method. That's what they call a closed loop system. So, you know, you're not doing anything on the land in terms of taking water away or depositing water there. So, but you know, then you've got the issue of are we really getting the jobs that we're supposed to be getting out of these wells? You know, there's certainly environmental damage that's done. No matter how well we do it, there is environmental damage. There's certainly inconvenience to the public, no matter how well it's done. And we're told that we should welcome this because of all the jobs we're going to get. Problem is that we've got places like Wetzel County that's inundated with wells, but they've got the highest unemployment rate in the state. In the meantime, their hotels and motels are all filled up with out-of-state gas workers. So
are we really getting any jobs out of something like that?
We clearly are getting jobs. There's no question about that. And there's a lot of secondary industry that you know, doing reclamation and some of those sorts of things. We're getting jobs. The question is, are we getting our share of those jobs? The question is, are we getting the better paying jobs? You know, one of the things that the committee tried to put in its bill was a labor reporting requirement, which would require everybody involved in the Marcellus gas industry to report their total aggregate in-state payroll and the total number of in-state workers, total number of out-of-state workers, and the total out-of-state payroll.
But you said tried to get into the bill.
Yeah, we didn't. It was in the select committee's bill. The industry was very much opposed to that, and that tells me that they know that there's a problem out there. And it's not a matter of wanting to be punitive towards the industry, because I don't think we can force them to hire West Virginians, and I don't think we've always got West Virginians who are qualified for all those positions. But if we as a legislature are going to know how to train our people, and if we're going to apply a little bit of public pressure in terms of the image of the industry, then it's important to have the facts. And if those facts aren't good, then we need to be able to tell the industry, look, we need to try to work on this. We need you to tell your subcontractors that you want them to hire some West Virginians when you come in. We need to know how to train our people for the good-paying jobs, not just the low-paying jobs. We ended up with a study, and I was disappointed over that. I don't know that that's going to, it might produce accurate results, but not the accurate results that we would have gotten had it gone the way that the committee had voted for.
Well, I know in education one of the big problems is anticipating what people need to know next month, let alone 5 or 10 years downstream.
Yeah.
And if there's a market for nurses, you try to structure your system to train people who can become nurses. In the oil and gas industry, if they need a lot of employees who can do A, B, and C, you best structure your educational system to train A, B, and C.
Yeah, the problem is, we're not getting, and I've talked with our community and technical colleges, we're not getting all of the information from the industry in terms of what kind of training they need for all of the jobs. There are some programs that are developing, and that's good. But, you know, you've got a lot of these out-of-state companies that have been drilling in other states, and the tendency is to just simply bring them in. And getting our people qualified and into that system is what we've got to find a way to crack. I mean, that's what we owe West Virginians, I think. I mean, as a legislature, that's what I think they want from me, and that's what I think we need to try to accomplish. So,
but to kind of take up a little bit for the industry, there's a lot of money to be made in Marcellus Shale by the people who own the rights, by the people who control the restaurants and the hotels and all of that. But still in all, this industry has huge upfront costs for the producers. They have to come in and spend millions and millions of dollars before they start to make a nickel back from it. The returns are promising, but they have to spend a lot of money. So they're going to try to cut corners and save money everywhere, I would think.
well, they do in some places. I mean, one of the issues we had was the $5,000 and $10,000 well permit fee. You know, up until now, the state of West Virginia has been subsidizing the oil and gas DEP department to run these inspections to the tune of over $1 million a year.
Well, what was the permit fees before all this started?
It was like $400. And you know, we don't have enough inspectors. That was one of the things that came out clearly from talking with the public and listening to them. There's not enough inspectors out there, and so. What we've done, what we did pass, and that is what the committee had recommended, is $10,000 for the first well on a pad, $5,000 for each additional well. That'll generate a couple $1 million. That'll take care of the deficit that the people of West Virginia have been paying for, and it will also provide for about another 6 to 8 new inspectors.
We're talking about the West Virginia Horizontal Well Act. My guest is Tim Manchin, West Virginia House of Delegates Chairman of the Joint Select Committee on Marcellus Shale. I'm Dan Ringer, and this is The Law Works. The industry wasn't terribly supportive of the increased permit fees.
No, you know, you got, some of the industry didn't care, okay? Some of the industry would have paid twice that much to keep us from hiring more inspectors. The industry is not homogenous. There are good actors and there are not so good actors, but that's why we have to have regulation is for that purpose. But they understood we needed higher permit fees, and they generally weren't that much opposed to it. They gave lip service, but it wasn't that terrible a thing for them. I mean, when you talk about spending $5 to $7 million on a well, good. What is $10,000? I mean, they spend more. There will be that kind of difference depending on whether they're building 400 yards of road versus 600 yards of road, depending on whether they put it over on that side of the meadow or this side of the meadow. So that was never really a legitimate issue, to be honest with you. Now, some of the other stuff in terms of the amount of setback, those are legitimate issues. I mean, the committee started out wanting, or at least part of the committee wanted, 1,000 feet from a drilling site, a well, to a structure, or actually to a farm structure that was used to raise cattle or chickens or whatever, that was over 2,500 feet in size. What we ended up with was a compromise to 625 feet. I tend not to think that that's far enough, but the problem is, by the time you do this circle around the well, you are sterilizing a large area of land. Now, is that a legitimate issue, to take away 20 acres or 30 acres of where they can drill? I think sometimes it is, sometimes it may not be. That's why I think you have good rules to start with, and you allow variances under certain circumstances. But we ended up with 625. I think, that's a vast improvement from 200. But the other thing, though, that we did that needs to be stressed is that it may not be so much a matter of just the actual distance as it is the air pollution or the noise pollution or the light pollution that the surface owner has to put up with. And what we really need to start doing, and did not have the ability to do yet, is develop noise standards, light standards, and air pollution standards, because these things do put off these VOCs, volatile organic compounds, which are not good for people, and they're heavier than air. So in a lot of situations, they may settle around homes, and people get irritated throats, and they get sick over that. Noise standards, maybe you could build closer than 625 feet if you build an enclosure around the drilling rig and you cut down on the noise. They are doing that in places. So that may be where the real emphasis needs to be, instead of just simply a line of sight standard.
Well, these issues are being recognized as being really significant, because Marcellus all gas wells, all drilling operations, gas, oil, Marcellus gas, is a 24-hour-a-day operation. And they light the pads with big lights so they can see what they're doing. They want to be safe. They want to be able to see what they're doing. But it's very bright light. Yeah. And the noise is there. And noise at 3 o'clock in the morning is a lot louder than noise at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Don't know why that is, but it's true.
That's true. But I know we only have a limited period of time. There were a couple other areas that I think we ought to try to touch on while we're at it. And one of those are some things that we did good. We are going to require newspaper notice, publication out there, instead of just notifying the surface owner. It's going to be published in the local newspaper. There will also be a website started by DEP where people will be able to go on and actually determine any permit that's been applied for in their area. And there will be a 30-day comment period. It's actually even designed so that you can get an email notification if one is being put in your area. I think those are great things. That 30-day comment period is good. We had hoped to be able to give DEP an opportunity to have public hearings if they felt that it was appropriate, because somebody had raised a good issue and they might want to take evidence. We were not able to get that. There was a concern over how much time that might take, a concern over how much DEP's efforts would go into that, and that we weren't able to get that. But the other is good stuff. I mean, people are going to have a chance to know. The other thing that I was a little disappointed in was that we weren't able to give specific new considerations. Here in Morgantown, we had an issue of them being pretty close to a water supply.
For the whole city of Morgantown.
Yeah, and the city ended up adopting an ordinance after the company had spent all this money, and that's a bad thing. I mean, nobody wants to see that kind of thing happen. The company's already spent millions of dollars, and now the city comes in and tries to stop them from doing anything. So, we thought that we ought to increase the considerations. In other words, the impact on densely populated areas, potential damage to public water intake. Some other things that, congestion, traffic congestion in and around cities those should be things that should be part of the basic process of DEP when determining whether to grant a permit and whether to condition that permit on certain activities. In other words, you may condition it on you're not going to operate your trucks out there on the highway between 3 and 6 o'clock or various things. We're not able to accomplish that. There is a little bit of lip service in the bill that I think that the DEP will look a little harder at it and try to pay more attention. But those are things, though, that that we've attempted to do. One of the biggest things, and I want to touch on this, is the casing. There's a very real fear by our people out there that we're going to contaminate the underground water. And the most important factor, the only way that science at this point in time can determine that can occur is if there's a failure in the casing process. When they drill down into the ground, and they're going down 6,000 and 7,000 feet, when they go down through there, they have stages where they come back in and they put a pipe in for part of the distance. And then they backfill with cement around that pipe. And that's part of the casing. And then they'll drill further down and they'll put smaller pipe inside that, and then they'll put casing inside that. And they'll do that again before it's all over. Well, that process is what keeps it from going out into those other strata. The fracking process going on at 6,000 or 7,000 feet with the limestone cap over top of it, the chances of anything coming up to the water table at about 1,000 feet are de minimis. I mean, there's just too much distance in there, and there's too many hard layers. But the casing, if the casing fails, then you can have a problem, and we wanted specific standards for casing in this bill. We didn't get everything that we wanted. However, DEP does have to write rules in the next year, and the areas that we want specific standards are going to have to be addressed by DEP. So I think we will eventually get those strict standards.
Were you satisfied with the bill that finally got signed?
No, I'm not satisfied. We did very little for surface owners, to be honest with you.
We should mention that the bill that the governor signed was not the bill that the Joint Select Committee drafted.
Oh, there were a number of changes, but that's a process. I mean, we wanted to get a bill. And I give the governor credit for calling the special session and pushing through a bill. I said that he was the one that had to bring people to the table and hammer something out. We didn't get as much hammered out as we would like, but we made some progress. There are some very good things that are in this bill, and we have made progress. We're just going to have to build on it in the future.
Was this a reasonable bill under all the circumstances, do you think?
Oh, who's to know reason? I mean, in legislation, we never get everything that we want, and reasonable is what we want. So if we didn't get what we wanted, it wasn't reason. But it does good things, and it addressed a number of areas that our people were concerned about, and so it's reasonable in light of that. It's just that we've got some other areas, some work left to do, but we'll get there.
One of the words that lawyers are fearful of in legal matters is the word reasonable, because who knows what that is under the circumstances, but you've got to start here now. You had to give up some things, your committee did, to get the bill passed, but many, many, many members of the legislature made comments along the lines of, this isn't what I want, I'm not sure I like this, but I'll vote for it.
Sure.
So we're getting ready to start another session here in January of 2012. Going to be some more talk about this?
There's going to be some more talk. I don't know whether there's a will to do more. One of the areas that we didn't do as much in was increase the rebuttable presumption, you love that word, about water wells. And that's simply a matter of, if you drill a gas well, shouldn't you be responsible if somebody's well within 2,500 feet goes bad? The industry insists that it's a safe process, but they only want that presumption for 1,000 feet. We went to 1,500, in my mind, our people need that peace of mind of 2,500 feet. I hope we're going to address that. There are others that I would like to address and need to be addressed, but we're just going to have to see how it goes.
You see, I have to now define rebuttable presumption. A rebuttable presumption is that if a particular event occurs under the circumstances defined in the law, it will be presumed that it was caused by whatever this activity was, but it's a rebuttable presumption. And it's okay then for the other side to say, yeah, it happened, but we didn't do it.
It's just a matter of who has the burden of proof.
That's right.
You start out with, yeah, you caused it, or no, you didn't cause it, and somebody's got to prove otherwise.
That's right. And the one who has to prove otherwise has to go first.
That's right.
Delegate Tim Manchin, thank you very much, Tim, for being with us.
Thank you for having me back.
Thank you also for being with us on behalf of the Law Works. I'm Dan Ringer. Good evening. On the Law Works website at thelawworks.org, you'll find a listing of recent The Law Works programs, additional information about this show's topic, and video of this and recent shows. You can also find the Law Works programs on YouTube and iTunes. If you would like to suggest a topic for a future The Law Works show, or if you're a school teacher and would like to receive a DVD of this show for classroom use, send us email at thelawworks@comcast.net or visit us on Facebook.
The Law Works is produced in cooperation with the West Virginia Bar Foundation, the Mountain State Bar, the Monongalia County Bar Association, and the West Virginia University College of Law. The Law Works is made possible by a major grant from the West Virginia Bar Foundation, the philanthropic organization for West Virginia's legal profession and legal system, promoting public knowledge of the law in West Virginia. By the generous support of Software Systems Incorporated, a West Virginia company established in 1975, providing high-end support services, programming, and consulting for county government AS400 mid-range computer systems, as well as PC-based systems. And by viewers like you.
From West Virginia Public Broadcasting.